Okay, so have you ever gotten that sinking feeling? You know that one when like a project just goes completely sideways?
Oh, tell me about it.
Like you're so excited, right? Finally going to renovate that bathroom, got the new tiles picked out, that fancy shower head you've been eyeing is ordered,
Yeah.
and then bam, it hits you.
What?
Nobody, and I mean nobody,
Yeah.
factored in the plumber's month-long vacation.
Oh, no.
That, my friends, is the nightmare we're diving deep into today. We're tackling project scheduling head on.
Music to my ears.
And trust me, this isn't about drowning you in Gantt charts and jargon.
Hmm.
Whether it's launching a website or even just like organizing a neighborhood potluck, a solid schedule, well, it's your secret weapon.
I completely agree, 100%.
We'll break down those monstrous to-do lists, decode those dreaded task dependencies.
Ugh, yes, dependencies.
And we'll even explore different scheduling styles so you can find what clicks for you.
I like it.
So what's the magic formula? What actually makes a schedule work? I mean, it seems kind of obvious, but breaking a massive project into smaller, bite-sized tasks, that's going to be a game changer, right?
Absolutely. It's like that age-old advice. You eat an elephant one bite at a time, right?
Right.
And speaking of bites, well, milestones, those smaller tasks are key to defining those awesome moments of, accomplishment in your project.
Milestones, I love that. Like hitting those checkpoints in a video game. Every milestone means you're one step closer to leveling up, or in our case, project completion. But what about when those tasks, they're all tangled up, you know?
You're talking about task dependencies.
Yes.
They're crucial. Think of it like baking a cake, right? You can't frost it before you bake it, can you?
Exactly.
Some tasks, well, they just rely on others being finished first.
Oh, trying to frost an unbaked cake.
Mm.
Recipe for disaster. And a messy kitchen, for
Yeah.
sure. So how do we wrangle all these dependencies? Gantt charts, I've heard of them, but they always seemed a bit, well, intimidating.
They're actually super helpful once you get the hang of them. They visually map out your tasks on a timeline, and those connecting lines, well, those show you the dependencies. And don't worry, there are other tools too. Network diagrams, those are like flow charts, but for your project.
Okay, so we're breaking down tasks, mapping out dependencies. But then there's the age-old question, how long does each task actually take? Feels like a guessing game sometimes.
It can be tricky, but using past experience, and this is Morton, understanding different project management approaches like waterfall or agile can be a game changer.
Right. Before we dive into waterfall versus agile,
Right.
you mentioned story points earlier. Should we clarify those for listeners who are new to agile?
Absolutely. Story points, they're a key part of agile project management.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on how much time a task will take, which, let's face it, can be like predicting the future,
Right.
story points measure the effort involved.
So instead of saying this will take 2 days,
Yeah.
you'd say,
You'd say something like, this task is a 3 in terms of effort, comparing it to other tasks. A 1 would be super quick and simple. An 8, well, that would be much more complex.
gotcha. So it's less about predicting the future perfectly and more about understanding the relative size and effort of each task,
Exactly.
which I like. Much less pressure.
Hmm.
But how do we figure out these time estimates or story point values if it's a brand new project, something we've never done before?
That's where, looking back at past projects can really come in handy.
Like a project post-mortem.
Exactly. Except this time, we're using those lessons learned to make smarter decisions, for next time.
Right. It's like that time I tried to bake my kid's birthday cake without a recipe.
Yeah.
Let's just say the results were memorable and not in a good way. Definitely not something I was eager to repeat. So are you saying looking back at past projects, the good, bad, and the just plain messy can really help us get a grip on these estimates?
Precisely. Let's say you're designing a website, right? And you've tackled similar projects before. You can analyze how long each stage took, where those pesky bottlenecks popped up, and how many people you actually needed to get it all done.
Like a post-game analysis for projects. But what if you don't have that kind of historical data? Maybe it's a totally new type of project, or you're the new kid on the team, or maybe you just successfully blocked out that cake incident from your memory. Where do you even begin?
That's a great point. And it's not always about having perfect data, It's about being resourceful. Look for external benchmarks. Industry reports, they often have average timelines for different types of projects.
So like the average mobile app takes 6 to 9 months to develop, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of just talking to your colleagues, the ones with experience. They've probably encountered similar challenges and can offer insights that data just won't capture.
Right, like whatever you do, don't order the concrete on a holiday week. Those anecdotal tips are pure gold sometimes.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of different approaches, remember how we talked about waterfall and agile?
Yeah.
How we use this historical data, even how we think about the schedule itself? It really depends on which methodology we choose.
Okay, let's break down waterfall versus agile in the context of scheduling. Okay, imagine planning a wedding.
Okay.
That's waterfall, right?
Okay.
You've got your timeline, the venue's booked, the caterer, the flowers, everything, and I mean everything, is meticulously planned up front.
A perfect analogy. And that's waterfall in a nutshell. It's all about that detailed upfront planning. You create a comprehensive schedule from start to finish. It's great for projects where you have those fixed requirements, where predictability is key.
But then there's agile, which is more like planning a cross-country road trip.
Okay.
You've got a general route, right? You have your destination in mind.
Right.
But you're open to detours, like trying that funky roadside diner, or maybe even changing your destination altogether because a local gave you a hot tip.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of Agile. It's all about flexibility and adapting to change. Instead of one big, rigid plan, you break the project down into smaller cycles called sprints. Each sprint has its own little mini schedule. And at the end of each sprint, you reassess, incorporate feedback, and adjust as needed.
Right. And just to clarify, neither waterfall nor agile is inherently better. It really depends on the project and your team's working style, right?
Couldn't agree more. A complex software project with evolving needs might thrive on Agile's flexibility, right?
All right.
Whereas a construction project with strict regulations, well, that might be better suited to Waterfall's, predictability.
Totally. And I'm imagining that a lot of projects fall somewhere in between.
Absolutely.
Take the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
But once we picked our approach, how do we actually build this schedule? Are we talking whiteboards covered in sticky notes, or are there, more high-tech solutions out there?
Thankfully, there's project management software for that. And there are a ton of tools out there, each with its own strengths.
Give us the highlight reel. What are some of the big names we should know about?
Okay, well, for waterfall projects, Microsoft Project is a classic.
Okay.
It's great for building those detailed Gantt charts and, keeping track of all those dependencies. And then you've got the agile-friendly tools like Jira, that's popular with software teams, or Trello, which is very visual, very flexible.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork, chosen our scheduling style, and even have some cool tools in our arsenal.
Yeah.
But now the real work begins, right?
Yes.
We've actually got to stick to this schedule we've created.
That's right. Building the schedule, well, it's only half the battle. The real magic, or maybe the real test, is monitoring progress and adapting along the way. Because let's face it, as much as we plan projects, well, they have a way of throwing us curveballs.
So how do we make sure we're on track? We need metrics, data, something to tell us we're not veering off course.
You got it. And the metrics you use often depend on your chosen methodology. With Waterfall, it's often about % completion, how much of each task or phase is actually finished. And then there's earned value management, which I know sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah.
But it's super helpful.
Earned value management, okay, I'll be honest, that sounds a little intimidating.
Right.
Like some secret financial code only accountants understand.
It's not as scary as it sounds, I promise. Picture this. You're on a road trip, right?
Yeah.
You've got your budget, gas, snacks, maybe a souvenir or two. That's like your planned value for the trip.
Right.
Then there's what you're actually spending along the way, your actual cost.
Gotcha.
Earned value management, it's basically comparing those two things. Are you getting the value you expected for your money and time?
Okay, so it's not just about if we're on schedule, but if we're getting the results we need all along the way. Makes sense. And with Agile, I'm guessing it's a bit more, agile.
You said it. Agile's all about those regular check-ins and adjustments.
Right.
We use burn-down charts to visually track how much work is left in a sprint. And velocity tracking that helps us understand the team's average output over time. Think of it like, taking your project's pulse every week or two, making sure you don't need to change your approach.
It seems like clear and consistent communication is key, no matter what methodology you're using. Let's be honest, no project unfolds exactly according to plan. There are always those unexpected hiccups along the way.
You're preaching to the choir, whether it's a vendor delay, a team member calling in sick, or, those dreaded scope changes. Flexibility is crucial. Addressing these challenges, proactively and adjusting your schedule accordingly is key.
So what happens when those inevitable changes pop up? Do we just, scribble new deadlines on our Gantt chart with a red pen and hope for the best?
Not quite. With waterfall, changes often need a more formal process.
Okay.
Think of it like a change request. This outlines the impact on the schedule, the budget, resources, the whole 9 yards, keeps things organized and everyone on the same page.
And in Agile, it's more about adapting on the fly.
Exactly. You reassess priorities at the end of each sprint. Something comes up, you adjust the next sprint's plan. It's all about rolling with the punches, making those changes part of your process.
So whether it's waterfall, Agile, or, let's face it, probably a bit of both, clear communication is essential, right? When schedules shift, everyone needs to know.
Absolutely. Keep your stakeholders in the loop, update your project documents, and make sure your team is crystal clear on the priorities. Remember, a well-managed schedule change is just a pivot, not a crisis.
Okay, we've covered a ton about managing individual projects, but often those projects don't exist in isolation, do they? What happens when you've got multiple projects running at once, each with their own schedules and dependencies? Talk about a juggling act.
Well, it becomes a whole new ballgame. It's not just about your project's timeline anymore. It's about coordinating with the entire organization.
Yeah.
Imagine, you're planning this big product launch, but the marketing team are already swamped with another huge campaign. Or your project hinges on a software update that another team is handling, and their timeline just shifted. Things get complicated.
Suddenly I'm feeling a little stressed just thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
How do we avoid setting off this chain reaction of delays and keep everyone in sync?
It takes communication, collaboration, and probably a lot of calendar invites.
Right.
Proactively connecting with other project managers, team leads, even external vendors, that's crucial. Make sure everyone's aware of key milestones, potential dependencies, the works.
So it's like choreographing a complex dance, but with Gantt charts instead of to-dos.
Oh, love that analogy. And remember, it's not just about dodging those conflicts. It's about, leveraging opportunities.
Yeah.
Strategically aligning schedules means you might be able to share resources more efficiently or even launch 2 initiatives together for a bigger impact. It's about understanding the bigger picture.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive. Breaking down tasks, those all-important dependencies, different scheduling styles, even the power of flexibility and clear communication. It seems like effective project scheduling. It's about so much more than just dates on a calendar.
Absolutely. It's about finding the system that works for your unique project, your team, and your organization. It's about being adaptable, learning from every project, the triumphs, and, let's call them learning experiences.
And on that note, we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
What are your biggest project scheduling wins? Or maybe those, so we say, epic scheduling fails that taught you some invaluable lessons. Share your stories with us on social media using hashtag #ScheduleLikeApro.
We can't wait to hear your insights, and hey, maybe share a few laughs along the way. Until next time.